for joining for today's broadcast, however long it may be. We're here on haps.tv, which means, oh gosh, sorry, I've pulled up some funny screen. We're here on haps.tv, which means that if you are watching on Facebook or you're watching on Twitter or another platform, you'll see only the comments that are written on your platform. So if you want to see all the comments, not that there are massive amounts of comments right now, but if you want to see all the comments, then haps.tv is where they're all put together so you can see all of them. So that's one of the beautiful, fun things about haps.tv and why I love broadcasting with them. So today we're going to be talking about budgets. And as you probably already know, I am Raven. I am not a financial industry expert or professional in any way, and I have dyscalculia, which means that I am absolutely terrible at maths. And as a result, I thought I would always be bad with money. So I was making money and I was doing quite well in my life and career while feeling completely intimidated by the fact that I didn't have the tools or knowledge to just manage it like confidently. And I just felt like everyone else maybe had all this information and I was sort of somehow just missing it for some reason. Hi, Haps. Hi, Mark. How are you? How good to see you. I'm not quite sure why I have to keep scrolling up for my comments. They don't always show the next comment immediately. So I'm always having to like just make sure because otherwise I'm missing massive amounts of comments. I say massive, I mean like one or two. So anyhow, I'm going to be writing and asking for any tips on that so I don't have to keep scrolling up. It will just show up in order as they arrive. Thanks so much for joining, Mark. Mark is from the HAPS team. He's very exciting because HAPS is very exciting and they've just got $5 million of funding so they're going to take over the world. So back to my money story. I realized that I thought everyone else had all this information that I didn't have about money management. And over the years, I kept asking people, like, I'm pretty belligerent. I'm a tortoise at getting things done, but I am persistent. And so I just kept asking everybody over and over and over again. Okay, not the same people. Okay, some the same people, but a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I started to realize that people didn't have this random magic information that I didn't have. So some people were like, oh, you just kind of invest in stocks. You just sort of open like a trading account with your bank and then buy some stocks. I'm like, what? Like, okay, that's not very clear. Like, how do I learn more about this? Like, what do you do? What type of budget do you use? And they're like, oh, I just kind of I don't really need to budget or like I just sort of budget kind of like depending on the month and people wouldn't be like, oh, I prefer this, the 30-50-20 budget and then I changed out of that into the zero sum budget or I really just prefer having the no budget. Over a really long time before I decided to dedicate my life to raising financial literacy awareness, I realized that this area was hazier than I had ever anticipated. And it caused me to become inspired over many years to finally say, okay, I think I want to actually do something about this. My husband had gone into this startup. We decided it was a great opportunity for him to take. And so we went into co-founding this startup, which is now doing amazing. And he worked on that and built it and it's now stable. And oh, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Mark. See, I keep having to scroll to actually see that. It doesn't come up. Like I would have missed that unless I had scrolled and missed all the other comments as well. It's very bizarre. So my husband went into creating this incredible startup that's like changing the world and well, B2B world. and and now it's doing really well. But through the process, it really highlighted being in this sort of startup life, all these gaps in my financial knowledge. And I felt really insecure again about it. And so I thought, okay, I need to do something about this for my own family, created the 5 pillars of financial stability. And that became the concept for what we now know as Money Mind, which is this new platform that I'm launching that's an online business that has little online courses, starting with the 5 Pillars course that will be launched soon, the first, 5 Pillars course. Thank you so much, Mark. Yes, startup life is tough, but what came out of it was not only a very successful business, but this 5 pillars that are money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. And this is kind of the formula that I realized that over many, many years, I'd been trying to like figure out through people or from reading or from researching. And there was so much information everywhere that it was like I was trying to get a drink of water, but I was just floating in the ocean. And it wasn't getting me really anywhere. So that's why I created MoneyMind, to make everything much, much simpler. So that's what exists now. And you can go check out their website, moneymind.global. But the reason why I created it was out of frustration for not having those basic pillars in place so that I could feel more comfortable with just everything that was going on in my financial life, and therefore focus on the rest of my life instead of the money stuff, the personal finance stuff. So when I created MoneyMind, I thought, I don't have any qualifications in financial planning or any of that. I can only study it, but I can't qualify with the exams and everything because I have dyscalculia. I can't do maths. I have numbers dyslexia, which is dyscalculia. And so I jumble my numbers and I just can't do it. Like, it's just one of those areas like cooking that I just can't do, and I don't know why, and it's just how it is. So I do work on it. I don't work at cooking, but I do work on this numbers area, but I also accept that my strengths are in other areas and to focus on those areas, like talking, talking, gesticulating. These areas I'm very, very good at. I'm strong in the talking and gesticulating areas. And so I decided to focus more on doing those things, right? Here we are, talking, gesticulating for MoneyMind. Yeah, you're welcome. And the talking, gesticulating thing means that there are more behaviors and actions in this course than there are maths or numbers. There's no like big formulas. There's some numbers that are like 25%. Which is not like gonna super freak us out as much as like this algebraic formula is like pi times x equals 7 times the square root of 9 plus symbols. No, like it's just, if you do daily expense tracking as a result of doing daily expense tracking, you will eventually start to gain more awareness of where your money is going. And you may behaviorally start to change yourself because you can see areas that you didn't notice was adding up to so much. So that type of behavioral thing is more what we want to do with MoneyMind, and really, affect behaviors and ways of thinking about things rather than numbers, maths, or anything like that. So we'll get to the topic for today, which is how to start doing something really easy with our money, and that's easiest beginners budgets. So I created a budget called the 25% budget, and that budget was very useful because it was more modular than the other 3 that we talk about in the MoneyMind course. So I'll just go into these 3 other these popular budgets that I have tried to use and found most useful of all the budgets out there, because some are quite complicated and hard to remember. And I, obviously, being a tortoise who's like an optimizer as well, want it to be the most efficient for my life to remember and to do. Because if I don't want to remember it, I'm not going to do it. And if I don't do it, then I'm not going to get any results. So I essentially just need something that I'm going to do. So the easiest budget of the 3 popular budgets, and then I'll talk about my 25% budget. The easiest budget of these 3 popular budgets is by far the no budget budget. It's great, huh? The no budget budget. I love it because it sounds easy and it's easy to remember. All you do is you allocate necessities straight from your paycheck, you allocate savings straight from your paycheck, and you spend the rest. That's the no budget budget. Nice, huh? So the no budget budget is great for people who don't want to have the super restrictions of having to do a lot of other parts of the budget. they don't necessarily want to dive right into having lots of strict numbers or tracking, or, they're kind of like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by life, or I'm too busy, or, these types of things are the types of things that you'll hear from people who will be a good fit for this type of budget. And it's a good starter because it means that you're paying your necessities and you've got some savings or investing, right? So you have to start with savings before investing, otherwise you have nothing to invest, right? So this budget is great for a lot of people that I know who really want to just focus on their work or focus on what they're doing. They're not big spenders, and they're more oriented in spending their time or life on experiences, and feel a little bit overwhelmed about having to start implementing something new into their life, like a budget, right? This is a workable budget, the no budget budget, that anybody can use and is great to start with. So the necessities is the area that these budgets will help us to figure out. So if we don't already know our necessities, then it means that we need to do the step before, which I just mentioned, which was expense tracking. So if we have no experience doing any budgeting and our finances are kind of a mess or not, and we're like, you know what, I'm going to start doing something different or new in my personal finance life. I'm going to start budgeting. Most of us want to start from where is like the easiest to start with. And the easiest to start with is expense tracking. So for 1 week, track what you spend every day. Every single thing. You can track it, like just list it in the evenings. I find it easiest to just put it into an app in the day. I still do this. I probably still will, because like indefinitely, because I find it really great for my confidence, to keep me on top of what I'm spending and to give more awareness, because I'm a spender type. And so I'll just be like, oh, I'm just doing things and I'm busy, and I'll buy like this coffee, and like, oh yeah, sure, I'll have another coffee. And like, I tend to incline a little bit in that direction. Or I'll be at Starbucks, I'll be like, oh, that muffin looks nice, right? And it's, I don't need that muffin. Also, it's not very good for my health, but, and some of these, I mean, if you look at like, if you use like MyFitnessPal and you look at some of the calories, it's more shocking than the price, which is, fair enough. The price is not usually like so severe, but okay, the price of a Starbucks coffee is really high. But, some of the peripheral foods are not like super, super crazy high. They're like as much as a coffee. But the calorie I put into FitnessPal. I was like, it was like a little muffin bun thing was like the calorie count of a whole meal. Like if I ate a pizza, or if I ate this random like chocolate like bread thing from Starbucks, it was like I could have eaten a whole pizza. Okay, I couldn't have eaten a whole pizza, obviously, but like the calorie count, I was like, whoa, more than the money. I was like, oh, this is painful for me right now. That type of awareness is what we want. We want to be going, oh my God, wow, there's so many calories, or that added up to so much this month, or something like that. Okay, obviously we don't want to be aiming to be shocked, but we want to have that awareness of that, even that tiny amount of that, saying, oh, I didn't need to spend, like, I didn't need to have that second coffee. Or, I would rather have spent under $50 on that rather than, like $60. And even just making like tiny incremental changes in things, like saying, oh, I'd rather have spent this much on going out maybe like 3 or 4 times a month rather than going out like 2 times a week, or ordering delivery and not realizing, wow, like this adds up to a lot. So once we start expense tracking for a week and then keep going for about 3 months, right? So we'll start to, within that time, want to make some changes. And if we were to want to challenge ourselves and say, okay, I'm just going to track but not make any changes, you might start to find yourself really fidgeting to make changes, because you'll start to see when you track what you're spending, areas you're like, oh, I'd rather not do that. But then if you stick to not making changes, you're like, you find yourself struggling to actually want to improve naturally. And that's what we're going for. So I'm very excited to announce that soon, once we have the course launched, there will be some PDFs in there that will be very fun little PDFs that will be useful for people to use. And that will be included with the course. So there will be a monthly expense planner and an expense tracker. So it's a PDF that's fillable, or you can do it printed out, and you just write in your expenses if you're starting and you want to do it on a piece of paper and you just want to see it there visually. So it's the way that I used to do it, because all of this, course, this entire thing is based on my experience, not advice or things like that, because I'm not a professional in this area. These are all just opinions and my experience on my own journey that I'm sharing. And this is how I did it. So I had the columns, and then I actually put in something that was a need or want as well into the one of the tracker columns, and then I put a tally. So there's the amount of the item, and then there's just a little tally column next to it to show how much I'd spend that day, and then a tally that would show like the month as well. So I'd put, like, at the end of the week, I would write in the tally column. So at the end of the day, I'd write a little tally on the side, and then the end of the week, I put a tally for the whole week. So I just add up all those little sums at the end, 5 or 6 of them, whatever. And I have 7 of them, whatever, whenever I did it. I can't remember how often I did this, but roughly weekly. And then I would add that up. And often I was like, wow, I really think I could be spending slightly less than this as a total. And it caused me to start to, oh gosh, sorry, made Haps go away. It really caused me to start to think about what was costing what, and actually go back and look at it and say, actually, this is like actually far more expensive than I thought. So an example of this and the awareness that it creates is that I've been doing this for a long time now. Once I figured out that expense tracking was the best way for me to just move forward and maintain a kind of budgeting habit without being too restrictive on myself, on my spender side, is just to keep that awareness there so that I have better, like, natural parameters around what I'm spending. So I still budget. I use an app called iExpensit. It's i.xpensit. It's just the first 2 letters are i.xpensit. iExpensit. And I actually upgraded to the pro version. I tried a number of different budgeting apps, including Money, Munny, I think it is. It's like a gamified thing, and CoinKeeper, which was really great as well, which you pull little coins in, so it's quite gamified. But I found that iExpensit was really great because I could put in receipts, which came in handy if I had larger purchases, or even sometimes if I was like in a taxi and I needed to keep the receipt because something was forgotten in the cab. Okay, this never happens to me, but if I was with somebody, not naming any names, like husband, and somebody forgot something in the cab, then we'd have the receipt. Or if there was something wrong with an item or something like that, then we'd have that information there accessible on the app. So that's come in handy on a few occasions, but more so it's really great to, at this point, have these just amounts in mind. And then I find it helpful to look at this little pie chart that shows, just roughly what the categories are where you're spending. Like, I may be spending this much on coffee because I have many, many coffee meetings. And I could say, in some of those meetings, instead of having a second coffee, I could have water, or I could just, fill up that tea again or something like that. So it makes for different decisions when we are able to see that there are areas that we just prefer not to be wasting money in that area if we feel like it's a waste that we haven't really thought about before. So if we are doing the budget that is the easiest budget, which is this no budget budget, this expense tracking for 3 months will show us what the necessity amount is. Because with this no budget budget, we need to know what our necessities are. And for many people who are savers or who have, very structured lives, they know what their spending is. They're working all the time, or they have really, the families, and it's quite regulated, school, kids, whatever. Whatever is going out is regular. And that necessity number is the most important number for us to know, because it's the minimum that we can live on. This is not dining out. This is not food delivery. This is really the basics of necessity: utilities, food, shelter, a basic car, not like some fancy car that takes up loads of our money. But this all necessity area should, and the other area as well, should ideally fit in like less than 75% of our income, because otherwise we won't really have very much for spending, and we might start to smudge out our savings account amount because we're like, oh, we don't have enough money. Um, so this budget, the no budget budget, is really great for people with very static expenses, who know their necessities and can just put the necessities and the savings aside, comfortably spend the rest, and that's a great formula for them. The next budget is the 30-50-20 budget that was created by Harvard bankruptcy expert Elizabeth Warren. And she created this to help people who are kind of in debt cycles to have an idea of what to target, to be able to have a balanced budget in their life, to start to get out of debt and start to get into a stable savings situation. So if you have a lot of debt or you have a lot of student loans, then please consider going over to see Dave Ramsey, or even following someone like Natalie Bacon on her free podcast or on her website. Dave Ramsey is on YouTube, and he talks a lot, in his opinion, about getting out of debt, and he has a lot of followers, a lot of videos that are helpful in a lot of different areas. So he has a great view to get on certain topics, especially debt, and he has his own style of doing things. Natalie Bacon is a former lawyer who decided to become a life coach and had all the student loan debt, and she does free podcasts as well as this online business course on how to take control of your life and create the life that you want and change your mindsets about things. So she's amazing. I listen to her when I'm exercising, which hasn't been all that much lately, but will return to being a lot every day. And she's really great. So that's nataliebacon.com or Dave Ramsey. So you can Google either of them and find them online. They're very, very prominent. So those two talk about debt, student loans, that type of area. And that is something good for us to go and research separately on our own, depending on our situation, because debt can be scary, right? But the 30-50-20 budget is really useful for those of us who are moving into that area of saying, I want to get more stability in my life. And that means that I want to have 50% going on necessities, 20% on spending, and 30% on saving, or 30% on spending, and 20% on savings. So the idea with the 50-30-20 budget, sorry, I keep jumbling the numbers up, dyscalculia, what you gonna do? But the point with the 30-50-20 budget is that you have the 50% on necessities, including car, including rent, including your mortgage, including everything is in that 50%. Then 20% goes to savings, so you have some savings. And then the rest can go to spending. So it's great to give some parameters of what to aim for. Many people will be 60% on necessities, is as low as they can go, or they'll be only able to save like 15%, or they'll be much less for spending. But it's important to have a target to aim towards and then start moving in that direction if we have the ability to do so. And I know that that's not a luxury that is available to everybody, but this education is out there for us to be able to decide whether it may work for us or not. So that's the two first budgets, which are the no budget budget, and then the 30-50-20 budget, which I keep jumbling up, but it's the same three numbers. And then there's the zero sum budget, which is the most extreme actually, but it's also known as a beginner's budget because it's easy to remember. You just allocate a dollar amount for every area that you're expecting to spend, and then you put that money towards that. It's great for savers or people who are very disciplined with their money, or people who aren't caught in debt cycles or have a lot of emotions jumbled up with money, because this is very rigid and it has never worked for me because my spender type is like, oh God, but there's something that I like that I didn't put into the thing and now I can't buy it. And then I have a spending spree, and it just goes into this cycle of wanting to be the type of person who's disciplined enough to do the zero sum budget while ignoring my actual personality. It's like when people want to be taller, we can want to be taller, but wanting to be taller doesn't embrace the gratitude of being exactly how we are, which is perfect as we are. And like a lot of us would want to be just like slightly taller compared to other people. And then taller people I know want to be slightly shorter compared to other people. So it's like how we are is great, however we are. And when we can accept that our however we are just is how it is and make the most of it, then we're on to a winner. Because then we're not wasting energy trying, wanting, or being discontent with how things are. And we won't be fighting with that. So if we have a money personality that is like a spender type, I wish I wasn't a spender type. I wish I was some epic saver, like friends of mine who are just like, oh no, I spend no more than like $5 on groceries. I'm like, okay, I'm not like that. But I can accept how I am and work with what's going to work for me, which is accepting that I'm a spender. And therefore, it makes more sense for me as a spender to personally continue expense tracking because my personality benefits from that and it makes me more confident. Doing the expense tracking may not be as beneficial for a saver because they may be like, oh, I already know and I'm barely spending anything. So there's barely anything for me to track, right? And that's fine, that's great, yay, but they may be more resistant around investing. So I am a spender, but I'm also a very, very aggressive investor. And that is not for everybody. It really isn't. And I wouldn't recommend being like me. But it is something that we, in the Money Mind course, we talk about our risk profile and what is, possible for different types of risk profiles in terms of, are you more risky? Are you more security based? And what can we do if we're more risk tolerant? Maybe if we're more risk tolerant and we tend to be a spender who takes more risks, we could do things to counterbalance and create more equilibrium, like track our expenses, like do more research, like pause and think before we take actions on things. And if we're a saver and we're resistant to spending, could we possibly research more about investing, find out more about what might work for us, look into low risk investments, have more exposure to this area so that we're not just sitting our money in a bank, losing money to real depreciation because of the fact that it's not gaining the interest to beat inflation. So these are things to keep in mind. And we talk about these. Good morning, Pakistan. Hi, Happy Gora. These are things to keep in mind and things that we talk about in the Money Mind course. So those budgets so far are the no budget budget, right? Where we can just allocate our necessities, savings, spend the rest. 30, 50, 20 budget, 50% on necessities, 30 or 20% on savings, and 30 or 50% on spending. Did I say that right? Depending on what our situation is in the time in terms of what we're spending on or what we're able to save. And then we have the zero sum budget where you allocate every dollar to gas, groceries, and you spend only that. So at the end of the month, the balance on this allocated sheet should be zero. And every dollar, you know exactly where it's going, and it does go to that purpose. So it's very, very strict at knowing where things are going to go. It's very disciplined, and it's great for people who are that type of personality and that way inclined, because not all of us are. So it's really worth accepting what might work for us. And then the final one, before I sign off, is a 25% budget, which I actually graduated from having like the 30, 50, 20 budget that I was like, oh, this could be interesting. It could work for my personality. I said, okay, so once I get out of this 30, 50, 20 zone and I want to start, being much more aggressive with, say, like wealth accumulation, which is essentially what you just call saving money for retirement. I don't know why it's so fancily named, right? But wealth accumulation or saving for retirement slash, also accumulating wealth, right? It's the same thing roughly, but you're just aiming for different amounts, like this amount or more. But if you're aiming for more, it's still like for retirement. Like, so it's just, anyways, it's just, if you talk to a financial planner, it's called wealth accumulation. So that's just what it's called. So the 25% budget is similar to the 50, 30, 20 budget, except it's in 25% modules. So I created this for our family because I was like, well, I want something that we can use more flexibly. So in the beginning, use 50% or two 25% blobs for necessities, 25% on savings and investing, and 25% on spending. It's easy to remember because it's one number, 25%. And if you are a saver and you're already very low on necessities, you could use 25% on necessities, 25% on maybe savings, 25% on investing, and 25% on spending. Or you can mix it up as you like. If you're, someone who wants to have these different allocations, or you don't have such high necessities, then you can change it however works for you and aim for rough ballpark figures, because we don't want to have everything in investing. We don't want to have everything going to debt or into necessities or into savings if it's not going anywhere else and balancing out the equation. So what we would always want to be doing is having a very diversified and stable financial foundation for our personal finances, generally speaking, because stability is great, right? It means that if any area gets a bit shaky, if the stock market goes crazy, or we, end up having some kind of, crisis like we've just been going through, where we need to rely on more cash, then we have that cash there. That's why it's quite aggressive in the savings of 25% category. And these are just areas to aim for. So those are the 4 basic beginners budgets, 3 popular ones, and the one that I created for MoneyMind. So these 3 popular ones, just to recap again, are the no budget, where you have the necessities and savings, spend the rest. 30-50-20 budget, where you have 50% necessities, 30% saving or spending, and 20% saving or spending, depending which one you want to change for which. Zero-sum budget, which is very disciplined, but still a good starter for people that it suits, where you allocate every dollar to a task for the next month and then spend it exactly where it is allocated. And then the 25% budget, which is 25% modules of, say, 50% necessities, 25% saving, and 25% spending. So that is the 25% MoneyMind budget that I've created for our own family's use, because it has a more modular approach. And those are some of the budgets that we talk about in the MoneyMind course that is launching soon. That will be the 5 pillars of financial stability of MoneyMind, including money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy. Those again, money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy. And that's what we talk about on our MoneyMind course of the 5 pillars of financial stability, which is out soon. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'm going to run off and have my hair done. So we're going to try something new, and we're going to put some curls in the bottom so that it looks less like a rat/roadkill, and hopefully more fabulous, but it could just look like curly roadkill. So we'll have to see. We'll find out next week, I guess, how it's turned out. But my hairstylist is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much, everybody. Wish me luck with doing my hair stuff. I'll be there for hours and hours working away on this MoneyMind course. So I will see you next week, and have a great week, everyone, and a great weekend all. Thanks for joining.